Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie. Michael and Jeanie share with you the wisdom of the ancient Aramaic internal process of forgiveness. They offer tools and support 5 days a week from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will support you in building a solid foundation within yourself to live in pure love. In Aramaic, Rahma. Michael is the author of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? For more information on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. And now your co-host, the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce.
And the truth that is rooted within me. Hi, and welcome to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor. That's Dr. Michael Ryce. And we are on day 107 of our Memorial Day celebration. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. We'd love to hear from you. So come on in. Hi, Michael.
Delighted to be here. We're blessed once again to get to speak with everybody in our audience all over the globe. We've got people in Asia and Europe, all over the United States. I see a call from Lansing, Michigan. We'll take in just a minute. In the meantime, what's our celebration Memorial Day about? We didn't get to speak about that yesterday, but basically our invitation, and again, I shouldn't use the word celebration, it's really honoring Memorial Day. Our honoring Memorial Day is an invitation. And the invitation is for you today to face at least one thing in your world where you have some form of hostility or fear that you perhaps have been blaming on another and are willing to be responsible for and forgive. Remembering that forgiveness has nothing to do with letting yourself or others off the hook because of what's happening in your world. Forgiveness is the tool that you apply to what's happening inside of you to change what's happening inside you. Why do we have war on planet Earth? Why do these awesome beings, think about holding a newborn child, the absolute awesome presence of love. How did these beings grow up to make war and slaughter and kill and all the maiming and insanity that goes on? Well, I'd offer it's because the world puts its thumbprints upon that newborn, and the newborn loses its human life and starts to function as a non-human. So our invitation to you is to reclaim your human life, to reclaim the active presence of love that you are by letting go of all hostility and fear. And when you do, the reason for war will be gone from planet Earth. We'll start to wake up and function as human beings. So we invite you to do that. If you're not familiar with that conversation, we invite you to go to our website, www.whyagain.com. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a link that says Download Worksheets. First 4 items will tell you exactly the story of forgiveness, how to do it, and there's an MP3, actually 2 MP3s of sample worksheets, awesome worksheets that people have done live on the show. So, Jeanie, we have a caller in the chat room from 517. This is probably Rex. Hey, Rex.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, welcome. Welcome to the show. Glad you're here.
Pardon the dog background. I shut the door and he's still shooting. Nick, you have to be quiet, honey. Thank you for taking my call, Michael. How's everybody doing?
Delighted. Honored. We're well. We're sitting in a restaurant in Springfield, Missouri, and all systems are go.
Awesome. My question, which came from one of my clients, and also I've often wondered about it and worked with a little bit, but in the Course of Miracles, it a lot of the wording appears to be what you and I both term, and you have termed the phrase regulatory speech, in that it speaks from a negative context to get theoretically a positive result. And I wondered if you would address that.
I would be delighted to. First of all, let's introduce Rex. Rex is someone who's been teaching the work in the Lansing, Michigan area for the last, 25 years, 23 years?
Yeah, it's been over 20 years.
And I don't know, do you actually have a support group going, Rex, that meets on a regular basis? Or?
I don't actively have a support group, but that is something that I'm going to be reinstilling again, and I'll make sure that I let you know the dates and the times when I reengage that.
Sure, we put it on the website, and we do an email to everybody in the Lansing area to let them know what you're doing. That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
We just finished
I am
2 weeks.
teaching a workshop this Saturday called Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
All right. Where are you doing that, Rex?
At the Fellowship for Today offices in Lansing.
Awesome. Cool.
So
well, send us an email with the information, and we'll put it on the website. So if anybody's looking for a why workshop up that way, they'll be able to find it.
Yeah, and I thought that you would have already received that. I'll do it again to make sure that you're on my why email list, because generally that goes out automatically to you, but maybe you didn't get that. Jeanie would know that, though. I obviously, if you got it, you would know you got it. So
we've been on the road. My inbox right now has about 34,000 emails in it, so I don't get to keep up with every one. But if you let me know it's coming, I'll watch for it. So.
Gotcha. Then I'm letting you know it's coming after we're done with our talk, our sharing here. I'll make sure I send it out.
Fabulous. So the question about the speech in the Course in Miracles, and it's interesting that you bring that question up. I was actually on Sunday afternoon, yesterday, driving from Chicago to Springfield to pick Jeanie up, and was ruminating on the Course in Miracles and the speech that occurs in the Course in Miracles, and a tremendous amount of it is about avoidance and what you don't want. And, of course, we know that if you focus on what you don't want, you get it. And the regulatory speech that's there, and regulatory speech really refers to positive or negative speech that is relegated to the unconscious level of our minds and is therefore automatic. And when you asked me this question on the phone the other day, the reason I suggested calling the show is because it's a really great topic to clarify a principle. And, we've talked oftentimes in the show, we haven't gone in the direction so much of speech, so that's why I was kind of excited about this question. When you think about the world of so-called matter, we say that there are things out there, and then we hear Einstein saying on such things as matter we've been all wrong. What we've heretofore called matter is energy whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. There is no matter. So we don't live in a world of physical stuff. We live in a world of energy. We live in a world of frequency. And when an event comes along that triggers brain cells in us, we know that the pictures output from the mind are a conversion that take place from the energetic or digital world to the analog world, a world of pictures inside our head. So each one of us has an analog converter, and we don't see what happens out there. We see what resonates in the form of pictures inside ourselves. But the tendency is to deny, if it's got some kind of trauma or pain, it is to deny and dissociate from it, and by dissociating, putting the image on someone else and thinking that it's going on out there. Well, in exactly the same way as in the Course in Miracles is very clear about, you can't see anything outside yourself through your body's eyes. You can't hear anything outside yourself through your body's ears, through your so-called body's brain. Of course, the word body is in quotes. So somebody says, Charlie is over in the corner, and if I have brain cells for Charlie being my worst enemy, then all of a sudden I hear, in a sense, danger is over in the corner, I better look out. If somebody says it in Chinese, I hear just some babbling. I don't hear anything that has any meaning. So if a Chinese person says Charlie's over in the corner, and a French person says Charlie's over in a corner, and an Italian person says Charlie's over in a corner, all in their own language, and I have no brain cells for any of those languages, obviously I don't know Charlie's over in the corner. I have no meaning for that. And if somebody says it in English, all of a sudden I have brain cells for that, and my brain cells hear. I actually don't hear your words. I hear the content of my brain cell structure. In the same way, when I look at you as an energy field, Rex, I don't see you. I see my brain's image of you based upon what you resonate in me. Now, if you look at the history of the Course, and as I said, I was driving down the highway thinking, I wonder if there'd be time, and I was actually talking, David's on the phone, and we were having this conversation a few weeks ago. I think David's there, isn't he, Jeanie? So David might have a comment on this too, but we're talking about the Course in Miracles and all the negative speech in it. And so Sunday I was thinking, and then Monday morning you called me about this question. Where would I find the time to sit and totally change the regulatory speech in the course to all constructive speech, and why is it so negative? Well, if you look at the history of the writing of the course, the woman who scribed the course lived in a horrendously competitive and vicious psychological research department in a university. If you look at the story, the whole course came about as a result of this highly competitive, highly backbiting, highly vicious environment, which a lot of academia is. And the woman who scribed the course had a conflict going with her boss and said, either her boss said to her or she said to the boss, I don't remember, there's got to be a better way. And the other person, the other one in the two, said, okay, I will help you find that. And when she got home, she found herself being told to sit down and take dictation. And the dictation was A Course in Miracles. Now they say the man named Yeshua dictated every word. Well, I'm sure that the man named Yeshua vibrated and sent forward a message, and it vibrated brain cells in the woman named Helen, who's the scribe of the course. Of course, Helen could only hear what her brain projected into those words. And in that highly competitive psychological world of education, obviously the competition, the games that are played are pretty intense and pretty horrendous. And so she gets to hear what fires in her brain cells. And, of course, we say the words came from the man named Yeshua. Well, yes, the vibration came from the man named Yeshua, but the words didn't. They came from Helen's brain cells. And so if you go back to the ancient Aramaic where Yeshua speaks about in his original time around on the earth, sharing what he had to say, he says that his teaching is only for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I think we can probably fairly safely assume that everybody had what we call the physical eyes and ears. So he obviously wasn't talking about that. He was saying that his teaching, the mind could only output if it had the brain cells to understand the input. Otherwise, the mind would interpret according to what it holds. And you'll notice he puts eyes and ears in that statement in exactly the same category. So I don't hear you speak. I hear what brain cells fire in me. That's why we have a workshop called Communication. Did you hear what I think I said? That's all about how the conflicting situations in communication happen, because nobody hears the words that somebody else says. Everybody thinks they do, but what they hear is the words and the meaning that their mind puts to it. And so I think we can fairly safely assume these were the brain cells that Helen had, and so were the words that she wrote. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've just since our discussion, and prior to that, Michael, obviously I've been looking at that, and I have other clients that I refer to the Course in Miracles to help them, in their process, because it's a great tool. But as is any tool, there are potential flaws, and the idea is to uncover the hidden unconsciousness of any tool, if there is any there, and then to refine it or to allow it to express itself more clearly. And that comes back down to our own brain cells, obviously. I mean, part of our discussion was, part of that idea is you could use it as a mind shifter. Then you use the mind shifter, it's a digging tool, and you're uncovering unconscious material that's inside. And that's very powerful, but most people that are using the Course are not using it in that format. They're using it as more of an affirmative thing, as an affirmative situation. And I found affirmations are only valuable to the degree that you have the material that the affirmation might trigger or bring up inside me or inside the person using it. It's only as good as that material that they're aware of that it's triggering, because otherwise you just affirm the unconscious material and then go about creating it. So
when somebody tries to affirm, my take was when somebody tries to affirm their way through life, I'm broke, but I am wealthy, kind of, trying to force something to be true that isn't.
Exactly.
That affirmation resonates on an unconscious level is what we create out of. So an affirmation can actually be destructive in that sense, where the mind shifter allows the space to open and surface what's hidden and to directly work through it. So it's definitely a different way of using the tool.
Absolutely.
So your client that had asked a question, you had suggested that she might be on the show. Do you know if she's called in today, if she's with us? Maybe she has another question or two around the topic, or do you know if she's with us? It would be
Jeanie, and it would be 616. If I need to give you the full number, I can check it real quick. Let me see.
Okay, there's no 616 in the room, so she's not there. So.
She may not have been able to do it. She just started a new job, and so I was hoping. She said she would be able to. No, she also said she was going to try to pull up on the computer. Would it show the same way?
Well, if she signs in as a guest, we can't identify her, so we have guests in the chat room, but we don't know. But if you have another question and you are a guest in the chat room, ask your question. We'd be delighted to hear from you, or call us. Our phone number is 646, pardon me, 200-4169 if you want to call in, 646-200-4169. Otherwise, it's a delight to hear from you. Send us that flyer for Sunday's workshop or Saturdays?
Saturday, yeah. It's from 9 to 1:30. Excuse me, 9 to 1.
9 to 1 in Lansing, Michigan. All right. Great work, Rex. We'll look forward to hearing from you, and the next time we get face-to-face, we'll be delighted.
God bless you. I love you, and love to everyone else as well.
All right. Bless you. Take care. Bye-bye. And we have a call from 954. Where are you calling from? Who are we talking to?
Hi, this is Nene. How is my heart family?
We are well. How are you, young lady?
Fine, great. I wanted to share, it's actually sharing a question. I've been reading about the quantum physics and how important is the observer to...
You've been reading which again?
Quantum physics, about quantum physics.
Oh, okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
And how important is the observer? It's determined to collapse that wave and then become the spark. Right. So I thought about the filters in the perception filters and the intention filters. So I would like to know if this correlates to the same idea.
Yes, I would say it correlates exactly to the same idea. In fact, we had someone at the workshop in Chicago last week who, her company manufactures cameras for the space shuttle. And they found that they could calibrate the camera, send it up to the moon, and the calibration would be off. And they'd calibrate the camera, and they'd calibrate the camera, and they'd calibrate the camera. And the only conclusion they could come to was the fact that on the moon, they didn't send the person who calibrated the camera. Somebody else was operating it. And, of course, the interaction of our energy fields with everything around us changes everything around us. Physics is showing that very clearly. So, yes, you're right on track. And which filter we have set, I've talked a few times about the video that Jeanie's got on the website about the lion that was returned to the wild in Africa. And after a year, these two young men from England who had returned this lion to the wild go back out looking for it, and this huge male lion comes bounding down the hill toward them and jumps up on them, hugging them, loving on them, kissing on them. And the interesting part of that particular video is that I suspect at least this lion, whose name was Christian, did not have a conversation with its mate saying, these humans are my friends, you please don't eat them. The lioness is the huntress. And so, here Christian goes with, and his mate comes along. This is a totally wild lioness. And these two guys are able to pet this wild lioness. I mean, imagine yourself going up to a wild lioness in the jungle and petting on it. Like, good luck. But the field, the energetic presence of the male, who is these people's friend, set up a safety zone where the female acts in accord with them being friends. And that's the impact. And when we, set up our little cliques in our cultures of anger and hate and, vengeance, a dozen people sitting around in a room and wait for somebody to leave, and then everybody pounces on them verbally about what's wrong with them and their criticism and their projections of their own stuff, we create fields that create effects in our world. And it's time for us to wake up to that. That observer effect is extremely important, extremely powerful. And when we observe through the filters, for those who might not know what Nay's talking about, the first law in Aramaic says you must have rahma. The word's been translated as love, but it doesn't mean love at all. It's actually a filter in the mind over intentions that allows your mind to only resonate intentions key to love. So a certain frequency comes out of that. That frequency has an impact on your mind, on your perception, on your emotions, on your body, and on the people around you. When we go into hostility or fear, that too has an impact. And so we're looking to understand how that all works and move in the direction of, in concert with Rex's question just now, that we want to move in the direction of words that come from that Rahma filter and that Kuba filter. Rahma over intentions, Kuba over perceptions. They too will set up the frequencies that will tend to support aliveness in the world.
Yeah. Now, and now when I do my exercise that I say I choose to reconnect to my true being, and that's when I go and close my eyes and think about the newborn. That moment when my lips going up, that you form, that's the Rahma. That's the moment you start activating the Rahma. Now, would that also immediately, automatically activate the Kuba, or is there another exercise for the Kuba?
No, they seem to be interdependent filters, and when one is activated, the other one seems to kick in. Certainly by choosing to consciously activate both, I want to restore Rahma and Kuba. Aramaic words for these filters over parts of the mind, you're going to have more impact, but one activated is going to tend to set up the energy of the other.
Okay, great, very good. Well,
so tell me more about your research. Go ahead.
About well, I've been. I want to thank you, Reverend Beverly, in the Unity in Pompano. She gave me the name of the person to coordinate for September 25th, the MindShifter.
Awesome.
So that's awesome, and I was able to connect with Pamela because she was a little bit busy during the summer now, so we got together, and we are now starting this week to, set it up completely and start sending invitations. So as soon as I have it completely, I will, let you know and to help with the flyer and then allow people to know that we're going to be doing that.
Awesome. Well, I'm delighted. That'll be another support group in South Florida. It's fabulous to see it happening, and it's definitely an idea whose time has come. We appreciate your part in it.
Yep. So slowly, but it's getting there.
Tell me more about how your study of physics is impacting you.
Oh, because I heard about, I think you mentioned this book, What the Beast, I think you mentioned, or somebody mentioned that book about the quantum physics. And interesting enough, when I went to Orlando, Florida, and I stayed with my friends there, interesting enough, I went to the bathroom and the book was there. So the book found me. And so
the book was laying in the bathroom in a restaurant?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Let me get this clear. Let me get this clear. We talked about a book when you were at Heartland 3 weeks ago, and you were thinking about it. You were starting to do some research on physics. You walked into a bathroom in a restaurant, and of all the billions of books on planet Earth, there's the book that you're looking for in the ladies' room?
Yeah, well, it's my friend's house.
Oh, okay.
And she had, but the same idea. I mean, it's my friend's house, and I go to the bathroom, and there's the book on the, next to the water closet where you wash your hands, the sink.
Right.
He has a beautiful big bathroom, and there are a lot of magazines and things, and I see this book, and I took it in my hands, and I read what the Oblivion.
Power of a vibration, eh?
Yeah, how about that? And,
that's pretty awesome.
I've been reading it very nicely, and it reminded me of a few things that I have read before. Of course, you reread, and the brain cells get stronger. A few things in several lectures at the Center for Spiritual Living years ago with Reverend Jim about the observer. And it's amazing how all the experiments, and it's according to our own content, what is really playing all the time. So in my thought is, okay, I'm always in relationship with myself. And then when you explain about the words, that is exactly, if somebody's speaking Chinese or Portuguese or something that I don't have my brain cells, I don't have any resonance. I have nothing. And so the same activity is going outside there, but it doesn't resonate in my content. I have no idea that it's going on. It's not in my reality.
Yep, that's it. And so recognizing that when we see hostility and fear, if we have hostility and fear about it, then we become contributors to it. If we have conscious awareness of it and bring love to it, we can start to bring in transformation.
Exactly.
So which filter we're looking through is pretty important.
Because what I'm doing is I'm organizing my morning, so I listen to one of your tapes for an hour. I do that every morning. So for a 2-hour tape, it's going to take me 2 days, but that allows me to slowly take my notes and study. So I've been watching the video from codependency to interdependency, and in one moment you explain that when you want to start an interdependent relationship, you explain that there is content within you about anger or sadness or fear, whatever, and at some point that partner or that friend is going to step on it. And then you ask that whatever happens, if that person is willing to be supporting you, and vice versa. And, those words really touch me in the sense that those words inside of me, I felt, this is very easy. And I saw the interdependency more clear.
Awesome. Nice work. And, of course, the support is key. And if there's some of you are listening to the show and that you're interested in getting more information, of course, we have an intensive starting on Friday, Intuitive Development at Heartland, a 9-day workshop. And there are DVDs that you can order from the website. And if this work has made a difference in your life, support us in putting it out there. 99% of our travel work is done free. We pay our own expenses. And, of course, it takes support from listeners to assist us in doing that, whether those listeners are, in the workshops or come to intensives or on the radio show. So that's a good reminder, Nene. And we're delighted that you're teaching as you are, moving the work forward in South Florida.
Yep. And it was interesting that in Orlando, also, I went there and I have a new dance partner. He saw me in Orlando, and then he came from Orlando to Florida, to South Florida, last week to Miami. It was very nice, and we found a lot of common ground in the dancing, and also he's vegetarian too, so it's easier also to share dancing partnership like that, because it's energy that you're handling together. And then one day he asked me on Saturday, when I was talking about what I did with the true forgiveness and the Aramaic thinking, the teaching for a better living. And he said to me, "Oh, you sound like fairy, and as if you could grant wishes. And what would you do to change the world?" And my answer was, well, that's what I'm doing, teaching tools to move people from the hostility and fear into a more loving and compassionate and happy world. And that's what I do. So it was a beautiful answer for a beautiful question.
Awesome. And you are certainly doing an awesome job of it, too. So we look forward to seeing your first Spanish video.
Yep. On the way.
Cool. Well, we thank you for your call. We're delighted that you're joining us. We're delighted that you're on our team, and we are absolutely delighted to be sharing the planet with you.
Amen. Same to you. Big hugs.
All right, big hugs. Blessings. Bye-bye. Jeanie, do we have any callers or anything in the chat room to be aware of? Well, Tim and David, how are you gentlemen today?
Doing quite well, thank you. Enjoying the show.
Awesome.
And enjoyed the show yesterday with Carrie from Cary, Illinois.
That was wonderful, wasn't it? The willingness and the commitment level, like, yes, woman.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
It's a good start. Did she mention how many people were at the group?
I think she said she had 7 on Sunday, which was her first night.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great. I called her on Sunday and made sure that she had what she needed in terms of videos, and she was very grateful for the call, but I hadn't heard any follow-up, so I was glad to hear her on the call yesterday and just sat back and listened to the whole thing, and it was a nice respite.
Great.
Have to contribute anything.
It was great questions and wonderful level of commitment, and she's going to do well, I think, with the support group there. Cool.
And I was enjoying the conversation today about speech and how the vibrations are put out there, and then each of us take them differently. And you're right, I haven't ever heard you talk about it. I've heard you talk about when we see things, and what we're seeing out there isn't exactly what's out there. And the implication is that, of course, everything we're hearing from out there has to come in through the filter of our own brain cell structure. But that's a real powerful thing that we're constantly dealing with in therapy, is that one person says something and another person hears something that has nothing to do with the original intention, even if it has everything to do with the literal words that are being spoken. And then the person receiving the message hears something completely different. And yet again this morning I had to advise a couple to take this one first step in trying to resolve their serious deadlock problem in the relationship, and that is, if your partner says to you, well, you know, when you did this and this and this, don't try and tell them that you didn't say or do that. Just realize they actually heard you say and do that, and that's the upset we have to deal with. It doesn't help to get into arguing and proving, no, look, I have the videotape that shows that I didn't, or I can get so-and-so to call because they were at the party too and they know that they heard you say that. That's not going to change anything inside of the person who has upset, because they literally heard and saw what they believe they heard and saw. So it's a powerful piece, and I'm glad you were talking about it today.
That is a good piece, and a good example of that everybody can, I think, relate to would be a simple example of imagine that we have a time machine and we go back through time to 1500, and we sit down with some of the most brilliant scientists, scientific and business minds in the world, and we say to this gathered group of geniuses, gentlemen and ladies, please, would you tell me what a two-door train tunnel is? Obviously, there's going to be silence. I don't care what their genius level is. There's nothing in their brain cells for what a train is or a two-door train tunnel. There just isn't such a thing. So what they would hear would be gibberish. It would have no meaning at all. Now, take the same group of geniuses in 2012 or 2011 and say, tell me about a two-door train tunnel, and you get all kinds of dissertations. One person might give a dissertation on the trestle structures and the way the mountain was blasted out, and the number of men that worked on, producing the tunnels and laying the track, and what size the track is, and how wide the track is, and why the track is that wide. Somebody who has those brain cells, when you say two-door train tunnel, could go through all of that. Somebody else who doesn't is going to have a much more limited perspective. And so when we start to recognize that everything I hear comes from my brain cells, if I don't like it and if it brings up some form of hostility or fear, I've got work to do. Whatever's going on out there, I have work to do. And so if I'm in the presence of something in my mind that takes away my human life, takes away my breath, takes away the active presence of love, well, here I am facing my work again. Another layer. David, are you with us, sir?
I am. Can you hear me?
Cool. I can. We had some conversation a few weeks ago, maybe it was a few months ago, about some of the regulatory speech in the Course in Miracles. Did you have any thoughts on what Rex had to say or what Tim's saying now?
For me, I've worked on paying attention to the conversations that go on in my head and the language and the words that I use, like don't and can't and won't and but, and understanding that the words that I'm using are really describing what it is, as you've talked about, Tim has talked about, the brain cells that I have. And so all the conversations that I'm having based on the contents that I have. And for me to be conscious of the language that I'm using reinforces my brain cells and the information that I have, and or opens up the space for me to hear it differently. I'm thinking about, as I had a conversation with Ari this morning, is that there are so many triggers out there that resonate different brain cells, and I could be driving along and decide to turn the radio on, and a song comes on, and all of a sudden it resonates a memory and certain feelings around the memory, and then another song comes on, resonates a different thought, and to continuously be caught up in that dialogue, then I'm having the dialogue with myself versus having it with someone else, and it just resonates, those conversations, as it is with reading the Course in Miracles. When I'm reading and I hear the Course talk about the world, and the world is, and when it's talking about a couple of different worlds, when it shifts back and forth with don't think of the world this way, and don't do this and don't do that, then it's a real challenge in my mind for me to stay focused with the message that it's implying and what it is that I'm listening to as well. For the conversation is all about what's going on with me versus what's going on in, quote, the world out there, unquote. So yeah, it's very important, very, very important. I'm looking forward to this intensive. For to me, what I'm visualizing of this 9 days is what I'll be able to do is to practice being conscious of that language, removing that language, and replacing it with language that supports my intuitiveness, my consciousness of my true essence, versus being caught in a loop of conversations that's just a program that's going on. And I think that's really important for me to practice being conscious, to being aware. So, and your mention of working on the Course in Miracles and shifting that language, I think it would be really, really helpful for me. I know for me for sure. And I'm reminded of the little scroll that you read at the last intensive that was by the Dalai Lama. And before announcing who wrote it, then most of the people, everyone that was in the class, in listening to the words that he was using, said that person was really kind of angry and troubled and had some real issues. And then they found out it was the Dalai Lama. It was like, oh, and it was just really big based on the words that was being expressed. So another piece of work to be doing. Can you imagine what would be stirred up in the minds of people that have been studying the Course in Miracles since it's come out, to then give another view of it, which is pretty much what happens with the translations of everything with it. So it'll be interesting to do some work around that. So we'll talk about it more when you get here. So do we have any callers? Anyone with any comments or thoughts out there?
Well, before we do that, I'd like to read an article from a magazine back in, well, let's see. It actually doesn't say. Oh, it was Weekly World News, November 24th, 1998. Wrong translation of one word cost 250,000 lives in Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings. Translators misinterpreted a request for more time to consider surrender. The wrong translation of one word cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of Japanese and changed the course of human history. The mistake triggered by the dropping of the world's first 2 atomic bombs in August of 1945 and resulted in the devastation that crushed Japan into submission and ended World War II. One slippery word, mokusatsu, cost 250,000 casualties because of the way it was translated, said Kazu Kawai, a former editor of the Japanese Times. The mistake is all the more ironic because it was made by Japanese translators. On August 14th, Japan surrendered, still stunned by the annihilation of 2 cities that left an estimated 248,000 dead and 128,000 injured. The events that led up to the tragic era began on July 26, 1945. Allied leaders, U.S. President Harry Truman, British Prime Minister Clement Attlee, Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin issued the Potsdam Declaration. The declaration called for the immediate unconditional surrender of all Japanese armed forces. At the time, the Japanese leaders were split into 2 factions, those who yearned for immediate peace and those who wanted to fight the war to the death. It was in a tense climate
that Japan received unofficial versions of the Potsdam Declaration by radio, said Hiroshi Shimomoto, president of the Board of Information. Japan's advocates of peace were overjoyed. Surrender terms were far more liberal than expected. Still, the peace faction didn't have sufficient majority to move swiftly against the war faction. That's why Premier Kentaro Suzuki, acting as a spokesman for the Japanese cabinet, responded to the news of the Potsdam Declaration by issuing a non-committal statement that was, in effect, a request for more time. In his statement, which was not an official diplomatic message, Suzuki used the ambiguous word mokusatsu. The word has two meanings: to make no comment or to ignore. Disastrously, Suzuki, who advocated peace, never clarified what he used the word to mean, and was withholding comment, that he was meaning to withhold comment. Chief Cabinet Secretary under Suzuki later recalled, Suzuki could easily have chosen much more precise words in his statement to the press, but deliberately picked ambiguous words so that the war faction would not bring down the Japanese government in an effort to prevent surrender. A Japanese newsman for the semi-official Domel news agency had been under great pressure from the war faction. The newsman chose to translate mokusatsu as meaning to ignore rather than the safer meaning to make no comment that Suzuki had intended. Domai News Agency English translations of the Suzuki statement was broadcast over Radio Tokyo on July 28. Within 24 hours after Western leaders heard that the Japanese would ignore the surrender terms, President Truman made his monumental decision. Got to breathe on that one. Words. If you can feel the effect of that, see how powerful words can be. And when we choose to awaken to who we are and function out of, as Renee was speaking of, function out of Rockma and Kuba, those mistakes don't happen because when we're consistent on an energetic level and those filters are set, we're going to bring forward something much more precise. Jeanie, you've got a thought for us?
We have two callers on the line.
Awesome, please. Let's talk to them.
Area code 804, you're on.
Hi, what's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello, 804, you're on the line. Have you got your phone muted, or have we lost you? Let's switch to the other caller and see if 804 comes back on. Oh, you got his hand up? Well, let's talk to Rex. Rex, you're on.
Hey, how you doing, Michael? Thank you so much for sharing that, and everyone interacting on your program. It's wonderful. I have often experienced substantial challenge with words and how each individual will interpret them through their own energy system. And over time, I've become more and more aware of the words I use and take care in, sharing them. The idea that simple misinterpretation and the devastation that it caused and the pain and trauma and the historical events that took place is amazing because it's a two-edged sword. It was intentional and it was non-intentional. I mean, when you look at it, it's a fulfillment of realities that are coming from wounded, projected minds. And I'm seeing that more all the time in our world and in my personal world of experiencing people going through changes and transformation. as it appears, as what appears to be happening in acceleration, I feel we're all having an opportunity to address our unconscious thoughts and feelings and repetition of words that we use and all the different things that we do. And I'm excited in that it feels like there's an awakening that's taking place on a much bigger scale. And I see it in small areas, and I see it in larger areas, and I see change happening on a regular basis. And I in the moment of feeling the impact of your article that you shared, I'm reminded to always consider there's an unfoldment taking place. And I have people ask me, how can you call everything perfect? And I like to share, I said it's somewhere between perfectly horrible and perfectly blissful, but nonetheless a perfect creation of an outpicturing or a projection. And I believe what you shared in that article was very profound and would reinforce that and reflect the importance of the work, of each of us doing our own individual work. And what we want to do is we think we're trying to get other people to do the work. but that's just the beautiful mirror, the smoke and mirrors, Whereas I believe if I'm doing my work and I'm just staying present in my experience in that process, then others will be a part of that process that I get to share it with. But they truly are never outside of myself. They're still a part of me working through something inside me that I happen to have someone that I can share it with that is also desiring to work through it. So I love the community that you have established and created, and I love you all, obviously, even if I don't know you. I appreciate you and I appreciate everyone and every part of me doing the work so beautifully. Thank you.
Awesome. Fabulous. Thank you, Rex. And if anybody's in Lansing, Michigan, make sure to look Rex up this Saturday. Why is this happening to me again? What's the name of the center again?
It's at the fellowship offices, Fellowship for Today.
Awesome.
Yes, and I did send you the flyer, and it should be higher up on your list of emails that you might have gotten. I sent it about 10 minutes ago.
Cool. Fabulous. All right, Rex.
Blessings to all, and thank you so much, Michael.
Delighted, and to you too. So we got that other caller back, Jeanie? No? Oh, they left us. Okay. Any conversations in the chat room? Well, somebody's got to have a thought for us. Who's got a thought? Tim, do you have a thought? How was Friday night's codependence workshop? That was the last workshop you came to in the series. We haven't had a chance to really chat about that. How did Friday night's workshop impact you, Tim?
Well, I liked it. I think it was. I think you did a little bit of. Are you there?
I'm here. Oh, okay.
So, somebody's typing tones or something.
Go ahead.
I liked it. I think you did a nice job of paring the material down from the previous attempt, and I think I would like more of the discussion of the relationship substitution, rather than having it come in the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes of the workshop, because I think that's such a critical piece, and I'm still grasping how that works after probably 15 or 20 different viewings of the old video. So I think the idea that you were talking about the relationship substitution having a subtle change, so instead of the power person filing in through the file I have on my friend and then showing up in my mind as my friend now appearing as the power person, that I believe you said you're considering that it may work the other way, that the file I have on my friend gets funneled through linked to and funneled through the power person file, and so there's an even stronger representation in my perception of the power person as standing in front of me.
Right. Yeah, the relationship substitution idea, it is a powerful one, and one of the reasons why it comes in the workshop where it is because it's a pretty deep piece of information for people to get. There got to be some brain cells for people to even start to comprehend that one. But in essence, what it says is that when we violate a goal that somebody held for their power person, that their power person is alive and well inside of them, and with that alive and well inside of them, if that goal is resonated because it's violated, then the whole file on the power person becomes active, and the file that information was coming from on one that we're in relationship with is actually transferred over into the power person file. And the same apparent body, the same image, the same eyes, the same face seem to come through into conscious awareness, but now they're painted in with everything involving the power person. And the relationship with that person is essentially over. There's no relationship left with the person you're actually in relationship with. The relationship is now right back dealing with all the dynamics of the power person. And one of the ways that we point out that you can tell that that's happened in a relationship, and virtually anyone who's ever had a relationship go south, which means power person dynamic, will remember the day that their partner started to speak to them like they didn't even know who they were. Like, who are you talking to? It's like you don't even know who I am anymore. Well, that's when the relationship substitution was taking place, and you're not talking in any way, shape, or form to that person. You're now talking to the power person, who in some cases might have been dead for 50 years. Doesn't matter. And it is without the other brain cells building up to the whole idea of the files and the illusion of the body, that the body being an image in the mind coming from the dynamics that are internal, it's a difficult one, and certainly not exactly the way the world thinks of things. For sure.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting you put it at the beginning. I'm just saying I think it'd be
right
better for me to have a little bit more time so that you could actually run through it once or twice and maybe even take a question or two there near the end, because if somebody has an example, and I'm sure there were several that were being resonated on Friday night. As a matter of fact, there were a couple that were sitting across the aisle from each other, and their heads whipped toward the center of the aisle, and they stared at each other when you got to that point, because they clearly have each begun to see each other as somebody they don't even recognize in the relationship, and
right.
And as their power person. So that's all. If it can just get squeezed in a little bit earlier so there's more time to work with that concept, I think it would be beneficial for me.
I've actually been thinking about breaking the codependence video into 2 workshops, because it's such a chunk of information. When you look, this work originally started out with 1 workshop. Why is this happening to me again? And now it's about 20 different workshops, and each one has broken out from the previous ones as the depth of understanding became deeper and deeper. So we'll probably be breaking it out. I'm probably going to do the 12 steps of interdependence as a follow-up, and maybe do one based on that very idea that you're talking about. So I certainly hear you, and anybody who wants to touch into it and listen to some of the radio shows based on it, you could go back in the archives a couple of months ago. If you just look in the archives on the website, you'll see the information on codependence, and we're delighted that you've been with us. We join you and support you in creating the best year yet of your eternal life, and invite somebody to join us on the show tomorrow. Blessings. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to MindShifters Radio with the Forgiveness Doctor, Dr. Michael Ryce, and his wife, Jeanie, who present the internal Aramaic process of forgiveness. Michael and Jeanie are here every Monday through Friday from 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Earth Angels Radio. For more on Michael and Jeanie, please visit www.whyagain.com. That's www.whyagain.com.